It was April of last year, and I had been doing some pretty heavy yard work, and I developed shoulder pain. Well, the shoulder pain ended up spreading to other areas of my body, and I developed severe bone pain that left me sleepless at night. I had fevers and night sweats, and we just didn't know what was going on. We were seeking help from doctors with no answers. But it developed to the point where we decided to go to the ER, and within a couple days, I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of blood cancer called acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and my state had declined so much at that point that my only option was to be life flighted down to Denver so that they could start treatment right away down here. So I spent about 30 days in near isolation, receiving very intense chemotherapy.
Chemo worked and he was in remission, and he was in Billings for a couple more months getting more chemo before we found out in September that he had relapsed and his cancer had come back. And at that point, we were told what our next option was and our best bet for his cure and his survival, and that was to receive a bone marrow transplant.
I woke up one morning to a team of doctors just standing in my room, and they sat down and they started having the really tough conversation with me about what the treatment was going to be like, what my options were, the percentages, everything that could go wrong, all the risks. And at one point, I just kind of tuned them out, and I just submitted it to God and said, God, I'm just going to trust you with this because you're bigger than this disease, and no matter what happens, there's nothing I can do. I'm helpless at this point. So I just let God take the reins, and I maintained that joy and that faith. In February, I was having some complications, and so I was told that I'd have to be admitted again. I reached a low point. I kind of hit rock bottom, and I just had to weep and cry out to God again. But I came out of that thinking about what Jesus had gone through when he died on the cross and the sacrifice he made, and that in that process, he also carried the weight of all sin on his shoulders to the grave. And that was just comforting to know that the God we serve made that sacrifice and understood what I was going through.
In the middle of this storm, sometimes the waves can seem so huge and so utterly terrifying that you feel almost crippled. But in Colossians, it talks about set your eyes on things above, not on earthly things. And so ever since Luke's diagnosis, almost on a daily basis, we remind each other and ourselves, set your eyes on things above, set your eyes on things above. And that makes the waves seem so much smaller. Everything in comparison to our God is just so minuscule and so insignificant that all of a sudden your perspective is just so much greater.
We just know, and we have that faith now that God's just gonna show up whenever we have a need. He provides us at all our needs, and it's something we can just rely on.